Good evening, everyone. I'm your storyteller, and tonight I'll take you into online dates that turn into pure horror. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where and when you're watching. Now, prepare yourself for the fear that lies ahead. Episode 1: The Wooden House in the Forest, without a returning voice. I tell this story not to seek pity. I tell it because sometimes the dead have more to say than the living. My name is Diane Miller. 3 years ago, I took my 2 children, Megan, 9 years old, and Evan, 6 years old, away from the noisy city for a short vacation. I chose a small wooden cabin deep in the Vermont forest. The photos on the rental site looked like a dream. A porch covered in golden leaves, light-colored wooden walls, a swing chair facing the endless woods. I believed it would be a place for me to rest and for my children to breathe natural air. But photos always know how to hide what the eyes should never see. My old SUV rattled along the dirt road. The wheels crushed dry leaves with a brittle crackling sound, mixed with the hiss of wind slipping through the window gaps. The musty smell of the forest poured into the car, the thick scent of rotting earth, moss, and tree trunks soaked by years of rain. "How much farther, Mom?" Megan asked, her eyes glued to the screen of an iPad with no signal. "Not far, just a few more minutes," I answered, trying to keep my voice calm. But the truth was I was starting to feel uneasy. The GPS showed no signal. The phone reception was gone. The road grew narrower, trees on both sides jutting out like long arms, scraping against the glass with a sound like fingernails. At a bend, a wooden house appeared. I hit the brakes. It was the place we had rented. The house stood silent, a dark block surrounded by dense woods. Yellowed wood, peeling porch paint, but yes, it looked like the photos. On the doormat lay a rusted key. I bent down to pick it up, the smell of metal mixed with damp earth staining my hand. "Welcome," a man's voice said behind me. I spun around, a tall old man, thin, with sweat-matted gray hair, pale eyes. "You are Harold?" I asked, remembering the name from the message. He nodded, a strained smile. "Make yourself at home. This house has a long history. The key is for guests. Not everyone is used to the forest. If you need more firewood, I'll bring some." His voice was hoarse, like dry wood being sawed. I forced a polite smile, thanked him. Megan and Evan slipped past my legs, running inside. For some reason, I felt Harold's gaze linger too long on my back, as if he was counting each step we took. Inside, the house was warmer than I expected. The faint smell of pine resin in the wooden walls, a fireplace full of cold ashes, a small attic where Megan squealed in delight. "Like a mini castle, Mom." We had dinner with sandwiches we had brought. The dim yellow bulb cast twisted shadows on the wooden ceiling. Evan sat on the floor with his Legos, while I poured some cheap wine and sat by the window. Outside, darkness swallowed everything. Not a single house, not a single light. Only the sound of the forest. Wind howled through the roof gaps. At times, I thought I heard footsteps on the dry leaves near the porch. But whenever I opened the door to look, there was only empty forest. When I tucked the children into bed, pulled a blanket over Megan, kissed Evan's forehead, I locked the door carefully. The click of the lock made me feel safer, but that night, for the first time, I heard a whisper from below the house. So faint, I thought I was dreaming. Around midnight, I jolted awake. Darkness all around, only the silver moonlight leaking through the curtains. I clearly heard creak, as if someone walked lightly across the living room. Megan and Evan breathed steadily upstairs. I strained my ears. The sound went on, then stopped. I held my breath, sweat trickling sticky down my forehead. After a long while, I reassured myself, just the wind moving the door. But I was wrong. What I heard that first night was only the greeting of the house, and of those who never wanted us to leave. I still remember that chilling feeling, the second night in the cabin. When darkness devoured everything, I heard the front door softly rattling. The sound was not the wind. It was clearly a hand testing the knob, shaking it little by little, slowly, deliberately. I sat up, heart pounding violently. Cold air seeped through the window, carrying the smell of moss and damp earth. I looked down the hallway. Moonlight spilled patchily across the wooden floor. Upstairs, Megan shifted. The bed creaked. Evan wheezed in his sleep. I didn't want them to wake, didn't want a child's cry to break the silence and draw attention to them. I grabbed the metal flashlight beside my bed. Stepping onto the icy floor, the wood groaned strangely under my weight, as if the whole house was listening. Nearing the living room, I heard something shuffle in the kitchen. A drawer opened, then slammed shut. Someone was inside. I flicked on the flashlight, the beam slicing the dark. A figure crouched by the counter. It wasn't Harold. This man was shorter, with a thick beard, wearing a dusty black coat. He froze as the light hit his face, squinting, raising one hand. "Calm down, I'm just checking." His voice was hoarse, strange, so unfamiliar it made my skin crawl. "I don't know who you are. Get out right now," I barked, hiding my trembling. He smirked, a twisted smile. "The owner allowed me in. Harold asked me to check the pipes. Noisy last night, didn't you hear?" I didn't believe a word. His heavy breathing reeked of stale smoke, rusty iron and sweat hanging in the air. I heard Megan whisper upstairs, "Mom!" her voice trembling. "Stay up there," I shouted, eyes fixed on the stranger. He stepped forward, dragging his heel on the floor, the sound making my chest tighten. "Don't worry, I'm just working. You and the kids, cute." He glanced at the stairs, his eyes twisting my guts. I gripped the flashlight tighter. "Get out or I'll call the police." I tried to sound firm, though I knew there was no signal here. He stared at me, then chuckled. "Police? Out here? Fine." He backed away slowly until his hand touched the doorknob. Before leaving, he looked back. "Lock the door tight, but not every lock keeps people out." The door slammed. The wind rushed through the cracks, freezing my spine. I shakily locked it again, wedged a heavy chair against it. My hands were drenched in sweat, the metal smell of the flashlight staining my skin like dirt that couldn't wash off. I ran upstairs, hugged my children tight. Megan sobbed, Evan trembled, asking again and again, "Who was that, Mom?" "Who was that?" I whispered. "Just a lost man. We'll be fine." But I knew I was lying. That night, I sat by the window till dawn, eyes fixed on the darkness. At times, I saw a shadow crossing the yard, slipping behind the pines, footsteps on the leaves, breathing hidden nearby. When the pale light of morning crept through the trees, I finally dared to move. I decided we would leave immediately. But something stopped me. On the porch, shoe prints sank deep in the mud, much larger than Harold's feet. They led straight to the door and never back out. At that moment, I didn't yet understand. Some could enter this house, but not all could leave, and what awaited us was far worse. I once thought nightmares came only in dreams, but that last night in the cabin proved nightmares are real when you are most awake. That morning, I pretended everything was fine to calm the children. I packed, stuffed clothes into suitcases, told them we'd go home early for Grandma's birthday. But I had only one goal left, escape this place. When I opened the door, Harold was standing on the porch, as if waiting all along. He smiled faintly, eyes cold. Everything fine last night? Forest here makes strange sounds, especially for newcomers. I forced a reply, gripping the car key tight, but turning back I froze. The shoe prints from last night, on the porch, were gone. The ground was soaked, as if someone had poured water to erase them. We hurried into the car, but the engine wouldn't start. I tried once, twice, 3 times, only dry clicks. The smell of gasoline rose from the hood. Megan cried. Evan clutched my sleeve, trembling. Harold walked closer, peered through the window, tapped lightly with his bony finger. "Seems you'll have to stay another night. I've got some dry wood. I'll bring it over." I turned the key again, desperate, but I knew we were trapped. That night I couldn't sleep. All the lights on, yet darkness seeped through every crack, clinging to our breath. The forest was unnaturally silent, no crickets, no owls, only the heavy groan of wooden floors. Around midnight, the front door rattled again, but this time not just one. From the back door, the kitchen window, the bedroom window, all shook at once, as if clawed by many hands. I clutched my children, heart racing. The smell of old smoke rose from the fireplace, mixed with something metallic, like dried blood. Then whispers, many voices, men, women, all tangled. They whispered my name. "Diane, open the door." The ceiling bulb flickered. In the instant the light died, I saw in the corner a figure, the bearded man from before. His coat smeared with mud, hollow black eyes fixed on me. I screamed, dragged my children toward the back door, but it was locked tight from outside. I pulled, pounded, till my nails tore. The figure stepped forward, heavy footsteps thudding. Behind him, more shadows emerged, surrounding us. In that moment, I understood. Harold was never alone. This house was a trap, and we were prey. I remember Megan's screams, Evan crying, "Mom, help!" Then everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, I no longer felt my body. I saw the cabin, but from another place. I saw myself, Diane, collapsed on the floor, blood spreading across my shirt. I saw my children dragged away, their cries choked. I screamed, but no one heard. My hand passed through the wooden walls, through the door, touching nothing. I was dead. I knew it. But death was no release. It only made me an eternal witness to this house. Each night I hear cars stopping at the end of the road. Hear footsteps of new people dragging suitcases onto the porch, their laughter, believing this will be a peaceful vacation. Then the knocking, the whispers in the dark. I am trapped here forever, a restless ghost. I tell this story to anyone who will still listen, only to warn, there are houses you must never step into, because once you cross that door, there will be no returning voice. Episode 2, The Family Erased Within. My name is Michael Turner. I was 17 years old when I died. They say death comes quickly, but no, it comes slowly, like a rope tightening loop by loop around the wrists, like the sound of blood dripping on cold wooden floors. I tell this because the memory has never faded, and because my little sister has never come back. That summer, my family went to a lakeside resort in Montana. The lake was vast, its icy surface reflecting a gray sky. Wooden cabins scattered along the shore, their mossy roofs and windows fogged with moisture. From the outside, it looked ordinary. But once you stepped inside, you would know immediately this place was steeped in the scent of silence. A silence not meant for rest, but for concealment. We rented cabin number 6. My father, John, was a strong man, his hands tanned and rough from labor. My brother David, 21, reckless but always protective of me. My little sister Emma, just 10, giggled often and always held my hand. And my mother had been gone for a long time, leaving behind an emptiness in my father's heart that no cabin could ever fill. The first day was peaceful. We went fishing, lit a fire to grill burgers, laughed loudly on the porch. But when night fell, the atmosphere shifted. I remember clearly the rusty metallic smell in the air, the clattering sounds from the abandoned cabin across the way. My father said it was the wind, but in his eyes for a moment I saw tension. The second night, when I got up for water, I saw a figure outside the window. A dark coat, a large build, eyes glinting in the dark like a predator. He stood still, staring inside. My heart nearly stopped. I blinked. He was gone, leaving only a mist of condensation on the glass. The next morning, Father and David argued. I caught fragments of a name, Carl. An old friend of David's, also staying at the resort. Father disliked him, said he was trouble, often accompanied by another man, a drifter named Ray. But David just laughed, saying, "They're harmless, just like to drink." I noticed Emma sitting quietly, biting her lip, wide eyes watching. Too young to understand, but sensitive enough to sense something was wrong. That afternoon we went back to the lake. The water was crystal clear but freezing cold. As I cast my line, I heard a whisper behind me, like the wind carried it from the empty cabins. "Michael." A hoarse, dragging voice. I turned. No one. Father stared at the forest, gripping his rod so tight his knuckles turned white. That night, the lights in the cabin flickered. Emma hugged her teddy bear tightly to her chest and whispered, "Mike, tonight I heard footsteps under the floor." Someone was walking around, not Dad, not David. I stroked her hair, lying. Maybe just mice. But my heart pounded so fast I feared she could hear it. On the third night, the cabin door burst open as we slept. Wind rushed in, carrying the smell of damp soil and burnt tobacco. I jolted upright, saw a tall shadow in the doorway. His breath reeked of cheap liquor and metal. Before I could scream, he stepped inside. Behind him, another shadow, shorter, bearded. My father roared, leapt to block their way. David sprang up too, but they only held out for seconds. Ropes, duct tape, a rusty hammer in the intruder's hand, all collapsed upon us in suffocating darkness. I remember the freezing wood against my cheek, Emma's shrill scream as she was dragged away, the terror in my father's eyes before he was struck down. And I remember the final sensation, a coarse hand clamping my mouth, foul breath flooding over me, and then darkness swallowing everything. From then on, I never awoke in my body again. I awoke with the eyes of the dead. I could no longer feel my body, no weight, no breath, only eyes pried open in a murky dark. I looked down and saw my own corpse curled beside an overturned table. Blood trickled from my forehead, spreading across the carpet. I tried to scream, but what came out was only a hollow echo, drifting into emptiness. My father, John, still struggled. Ropes cut deep into his wrists, leaving dark purple marks. Carl stood over him, panting, eyes alight with thrill. Ray, the shorter, scruffy one, laughed, a dry, grating laugh like stones grinding. David tried to rise, but Ray swung the hammer straight into his shoulder. The crack of bone chilled my soul. I watched my brother collapse, still cursing through clenched teeth. In that moment, I realized absolute helplessness. I was right there, seeing it all, yet I could not touch, could not stop, could not save. Emma, my sister. I saw her trembling in the corner, teddy bear dropped. Her wide eyes reflected the flickering light through tears. Carl turned. His half-smile made me want to tear him apart, but I was only a shadow. "This one's cute," Carl said, voice low and coarse. Ray chuckled, moving closer. Emma shrieked, her childish scream tearing the heavy air. Father roared, straining against his ropes until his wrists split open, blood spraying. They dragged Emma outside, into the dark yard. Her cries echoed in my skull, ripping my soul to pieces. I rushed after, but my feet never touched the ground, only gliding uselessly. The night wind passed through me, so cold I thought I was unraveling into fragments. Beyond, the lake was pitch black, waves trembling. I saw Carl and Ray dragging Emma toward a pickup truck a few yards away. Headlights blinked, reflecting her pale face. I threw myself in their path, but they passed through me as though I were mist. Emma looked around, sensing something, then screamed, "Mike! Where are you?" My heart shattered. I was right in front of her, but my hand slipped through her tear-drenched hair. The truck roared to life, its engine echoing through the woods. Tires crunched gravel, carrying Emma's wails away. I screamed, but my voice came out only as a lonely gust of wind unheard. Back in the cabin, there was only horrific silence. Father lay still, eyes wide, his dead gaze fixed on the door. David slumped against the wall, breathing shallowly, lips moving soundlessly. Ray had struck him down. I knelt beside them, but my transparent hands passed through their cooling bodies. That night, the cabin reeked of metal and smoke. The wind through the roof howled like a spirit's cry. I realized then I no longer belonged to the living. I was trapped. Inside that wooden house, with Emma's sobs echoing endlessly in my head. I don't know if souls have a sense of time. That night stretched forever, like a wound spreading without ever closing. I wandered the dark cabin, smelling dried blood in the wood, hearing every creak of the floor like footsteps crushing memories. Police arrived the next morning, but for me, it was just a slow-motion play. They swept their flashlights over my father's corpse, over David's lifeless body. They called Emma's name, searched the woods, but only the lake answered with echoes. I followed, shouting, pointing to the road where the truck had gone. But no one heard. I was only a breeze grazing their necks, making them shiver, pull up collars and keep searching in vain. Time passed. Cabin 6 was locked up. My family was taken away in black bags, and I remained trapped. Each night I sat at the window, staring at the bottomless, cold lake, hearing in the wind Emma's voice calling, "Mike, where are you?" That cry stabbed into my soul like a blade. They say the resort is haunted. Guests claim they hear dragging footsteps at night, or a child's cries from the attic. Some say they see a teenage boy at the window, empty eyes staring at the lake. They don't know, it's me, the one who never leaves. And sometimes, in the blur between two worlds, I see Carl and Ray again. Not in flesh, but as dark streaks cackling by the lakeshore. They're still out there, lurking in the woods, staring at the cabin like beasts waiting. I don't know if it's memory, hallucination, or truth still unfolding. Years later, a hunter stumbled upon Emma's floral jacket in a ditch miles away, caked in mud, torn, stained with brown-red patches. But no Emma, no one ever found her small body. For them, it was an ending. For me, it was a wound that never closed. Tonight, like every night, I sit on the rotting windowsill staring at the frozen lake. I still hear tires on gravel, cabin doors opening, new families stepping in with smiles, thinking they've found rest. I want to scream warnings, but all that escapes is the whistle of wind through the roof. If someday you pass that abandoned resort and see Cabin 6 with its door left ajar, do not step inside. I will be there, still waiting. And I will watch you as I once watched my family disappear. Because here, once death has been sown, it never leaves. Episode 3. The Camera in the Wall Never Turns Off. My name is Olivia Green. People say that once you die, everything ends. But for me, death only became another room. A room with no exit, where you are forced to witness forever the most terrifying moment of your life. And I am telling you this, so you know this truth is no joke. Last winter, my husband Daniel and I, along with some friends, rented a vacation home in suburban Minnesota. 6 kids came with us, running around noisily, making us believe this trip would be a warm family holiday. The house was modern, spotless, with glossy white walls, new wooden floors, and a faint scent of citrus air freshener. Patrick, the landlord, left a note on the kitchen table. Enjoy. If you need anything, I'm only a few minutes away. At first, everything seemed normal, but I noticed right that first night, the house was too quiet. Not the kind of calm that makes you feel at peace, but the kind of silence that lets you hear your own heartbeat pounding in your chest. Every step the kids took on the wooden floor echoed too long, as if someone was listening from beneath. While brushing my teeth in the bathroom, I noticed the outlet right next to the sink had a tiny hole in the middle, perfectly round, gleaming like an eye. I shivered. Daniel laughed, saying I was imagining things. But when I leaned closer, I heard a faint click, like metal brushing against electricity. And then, I felt someone staring at me from behind the plastic. That night, while the house slept, I couldn't. The walls creaked. Not evenly, like wood expanding from heat, but like someone shifting in the hollow space inside. Sometimes a cold draft leaked out through the gap near the outlet, carrying the acrid smell of burnt tobacco and damp mold, so out of place in that modern, clean house. I sat up, clutching my pillow, heart racing. Then I heard rustling from the bathroom, the drip of water. Someone was standing in there while everyone else slept. Trembling, I walked over and pushed the door open slowly. The light was off, but the darkness was thick, dampness seeping out. In the mirror, I caught a glimpse of something retreating into shadow, a dark scrap of clothing, an eye glinting once. I slammed the door shut, my heart about to burst. The next day, when Daniel brought tools in from the car, I forced him to remove the outlet. When the plastic cover came off, a tiny glass eye was revealed. Not a defect. A camera embedded into the wiring, cables stretching deep into the wall. Behind it, a narrow passage, just wide enough for someone to crawl through. Daniel froze. I nearly vomited, imagining the 6 children undressing, bathing in that room. Before we could react, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, no name. Don't remove anymore. I'm watching. My skin turned ice cold, as if hundreds of eyes were pressed against me from within the walls. I had never felt silence weigh so heavily. After that text, I stood frozen in the room, staring at the blinding white wall. Daniel hurled the outlet aside, his hands visibly trembling. I felt gutted, like my insides had been ripped out. I swear I heard faint laughter from within the wall, thin, but enough to chill my spine. We locked all the doors, pulled the curtains shut, told the kids to stay in the living room. But kids don't sit still. Little Caleb asked, "Why can't we use the bathroom, Aunt Liv?" I really gotta go. I stammered a lie. "The pipes are broken, sweetheart. Hold it a bit." But I could see fear already spreading in his eyes, trickling from my ragged breathing into each of them. Daniel decided to check the second bathroom. Same outlet, same tiny hole. We removed the cover, and another camera dropped onto the floor, wrapped with a small note. My hands shook as I opened it. Scrawled handwriting. Every moment is precious, especially when you don't know you're being seen. I threw the note away, my fingers coated with the smell of burnt plastic and the musty stench from inside the wall, so nauseating I nearly gagged. Daniel cursed and tried calling the police, but the signal was so weak all we heard was static. As he stepped outside to find reception, I swear I saw a shadow slip past the kitchen door frame. Fast, blurry, but eyes gleamed like an animal's in the night. We herded everyone into the living room. Lights on, but the pale yellow glow couldn't chase away the feeling of being watched from the walls, the ceiling, the wooden floor beneath us. The children whispered, "I hear voices in the bedroom." I heard them too. A hoarse, drawn-out murmur, "Don't worry, it's just a game." A sudden knock rattled the door, 3 knocks steady. Daniel looked at me, his lips pale. I called out, "Who is it?" A deep male voice replied, "It's Patrick. I heard you had trouble. Let me in to check." I stepped back, clutching 2 of the kids. That voice, it was the same voice from the texts. I whispered, "Don't open the door." Daniel nodded, but the knocking grew harsher, so hard the window panes rattled. "Olivia, I know you're in there," Patrick growled. "The lock won't hold. This house is mine." I heard metal twisting in the lock. Daniel braced a chair against the door. Then another sound, a window rattling, a frame being pried. Scratching spread across the house, from different directions at once. Not one intruder, a group. Panic surged through me. I looked around and realized every room had at least one outlet, one vent, each capable of hiding another glass eye. I imagined being surrounded, not just from outside but by the very walls themselves. The children cried. Little Sophie trembled in my arms, soaking my shirt with tears. I rocked her, but my gaze was fixed on the ceiling corner. A vent hung ajar, behind it. An eye staring down, unblinking, unmoving, just watching. I screamed. Daniel followed my gaze. He hurled a chair up, the vent cover crashed down, but behind it wasn't emptiness. A narrow tunnel, pitch black. Heavy breathing rasped from within, then withdrew. A filthy hand clawed the wood for a moment, then vanished. The pounding at the door stopped. Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. We heard only the clock ticking. And in that silence a figure stood outside the window, Patrick. A pale smile on his lips, eyes fixed on us through the glass. I shielded Sophie's face, turned away, but I knew. He didn't need to look through the window. He had hundreds of eyes in the walls. And he never let them close. That night none of us slept. We huddled together, light flickering, breath ragged. Every small sound, a branch snapping, wind whistling, jerked my heart. I knew Patrick hadn't left. He lingered, waiting for the house to swallow us whole. I remember vividly the moment the living room light cut out. Darkness swallowed us, sudden, suffocating. The children screamed, their cries echoing through the walls, distorted, multiplied, like hundreds of children crying at once. Daniel fumbled for his phone, its pale glow casting his terrified face. No signal. We were completely isolated. Metal screeched overhead. I looked up. A vent cover fell. For a split second, a face peered out. Pale, dust-caked, eyes bulging wide like magnifying glasses, staring straight at me. Then it vanished, crawling deeper into the wall. Scratching scurried around us, fast, circling like a swarm of giant rats. "We need to get to the car now," Daniel whispered, choking. He grabbed my hand, motioned me to carry Sophie. We led the children to the front door, but as soon as he touched the knob, it swung open from outside. Patrick stood there. His flashlight blinded us, making the kids scream. "You don't understand," he said, voice calm, icy. "This house is mine. These walls are mine. These eyes are mine. and I will never lose them. Daniel roared, shoving the door, struggling with him, the crash of furniture, shattering glass. I dragged the children back, heart pounding. And then I saw the walls, the holes, dozens of cameras glowing with tiny red lights, like a swarm of insects staring at us. Patrick broke through. He was faster, stronger than Daniel. I remember the thud. Daniel hitting the floor, blood spreading from his head, the iron stench filling my nose. I clutched Sophie, screaming. Patrick closed in, his eyes feverish, mouth twitching into a trembling grin. I've watched you. Every moment, you can't imagine the joy. His cold, rough hand closed on my throat. My lungs collapsed, breath shattered, vision dimming. The children's cries blurred, replaced by ringing in my ears, faint hisses from the walls. The last thing I saw was the red lights of the cameras, flashing like dozens of shutters capturing the last moment of my life. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in my body. I stood, watching the room, seeing my corpse sprawled with empty eyes. The children dragged away, Daniel unconscious. Patrick crouched, leaning close to a freshly mounted camera, whispering into the lens. There's always room for one more beautiful moment. I lunged at him, but my hands passed through air. I was dead, and I realized I could never escape this place. Now I am trapped within the walls along with those cold eyes. I still hear Patrick's laughter echoing, even after the police sealed the house. They removed the cameras, but not us. The souls trapped, forced to watch, forced to remember. Whenever someone rents this house, I see new eyes widen in terror, new figures wandering the bathrooms, wondering if they are being watched. I want to warn them, but my voice is only static from a broken speaker. Sometimes they hear it, flinch, then tell themselves it's just faulty wiring. They don't know it's me, screaming in despair. If you ever step into a rented house, notice an outlet with a small hole, a mirror fogging without reason, or scratching inside the walls. Leave it once, because I am still here inside these walls. And those cameras, they never turn off. Episode 4. The Villa Pressed Against the Death Shadow in San Jose. My name is Carla Wilson. I once thought that trip would be a birthday gift for myself at 36, but I was wrong. I didn't receive any gift other than a final night of my life. Now, I recount it from the perspective of one without a body, because if I stay silent, that villa will go on devouring more people. My sister-in-law, Laura, and I went to San Jose, California, renting a beautiful villa on a hillside. The photo online looked like a dream. A blue pool, polished wooden terrace, wide glass doors opening toward a valley glowing with sunset. When we arrived, we were greeted by the villa's owner, a polite middle-aged man, and, more notably, a guard living right by the gate. His name was Victor. Victor was tall, broad-shouldered, with ashen skin and deep black eyes. The first time he looked at us, I felt the temperature around me drop several degrees. He only nodded, didn't smile, yet his eyes clung to me until I turned away. The first days passed peacefully. Laura and I went to local markets, ate sweet fruits, laughed aloud while zip-lining through the forest. By day, the villa overflowed with sunlight, the faint smell of pool water drifting in the wind, music from a Bluetooth speaker making us believe this was a little paradise. But when night fell, the silence of the place turned into a massive sound pounding into my ears. The villa's walls were so thin, I could hear tree branches scraping glass with a screech, and hear Victor's steady footsteps pacing back and forth outside with his glaring flashlight. Each time he stopped in front of the door, the beam reflected onto the bedroom ceiling, keeping me from sleep. On the last day, Laura had to leave early for work. I stayed one more night. "You'll be fine," I laughed to reassure her. "I just want to see the sunrise on this hill one more time." Laura hugged me, but as her car rolled away, I saw Victor standing at the gate, his eyes following the car until it vanished, then slowly turning toward me. That afternoon, the villa suddenly lost power. The entire house sank into ashen gray. I heard the water in the pipes screech as if someone were screaming. When the power came back, the lights flickered and buzzed. I texted Laura, "A little weird, but all fine." In truth, I trembled so badly I dropped my wine glass, shards scattering, cutting my foot. The metallic scent of blood spread, mixing with the chlorine smell from the pool. That night, Victor knocked. He held out a cheap bottle of wine, saying, "Birthday, huh? Shouldn't drink alone." I refused, forcing a cheerful tone, but his eyes drilled into my face longer than polite. "Be careful," he said, voice raspy. "The wind's strong tonight." Then he left, heavy steps on the gravel echoing unnaturally long, as though unwilling to fade. That night, I swam a lap to clear my head. The pool water was cold. Chlorine stung my nose. When I surfaced, I swear I saw a figure standing behind the terrace glass, motionless, watching my every move. I threw the towel over my shoulder and ran inside. But the living room was empty, only my own shadow stretching long across the wall. Sitting on the bed, wrapped in a blanket, I heard the wind outside begin to shriek, rattling the windows. Then came another sound behind the wall, not wind. Slow, steady footsteps, walking right along the bedroom wall, and then, right by my ear, from the vent above, came a hoarse whisper. "Tonight, you won't be alone, Carla." That night, I did not sleep. I sat on the bed, eyes fixed on the vent. I feared that if I looked away for even a second, a face would emerge from the dark, leaning down at me. My heart pounded, chest stabbing with each beat. Moldy air from the ducts wafted down, mixed with a metallic tang like rust. Around midnight, the outside wind stopped abruptly. The villa sank into thick silence, as though a giant hand had smothered all sound. I heard clearly the drip from a leaky faucet in the kitchen sink. Drop, drop. Each drip fell straight into my nerves. I tried to soothe myself. "Calm down, Carla. Just an old house." But reason was useless. Then I heard the gate creak open. The hinge shrieked long, ripping the silence apart. I rushed to the window, pulled the curtain. Moonlight cast a gray haze, and in it Victor walked slowly across the yard, his flashlight dead in his hand. He didn't need light. His tall frame cast a shadow stretching like it would swallow the stone path whole. I backed away, clutching my phone. I texted Laura hastily, "Something's wrong. Victor's lurking around the house." The message sent but never showed delivered. I tried calling. No service. I felt like a trapped animal behind glass, with the predator prowling outside. Knocks pounded at the door. 3 heavy thuds. I held my breath, heart about to leap from my throat. "Carla." His voice was raspy, drawn out. "You shouldn't be alone. Open up. I just want to make sure you're safe." I stepped back, feet crunching on the shards of glass from earlier. The old cut split open again, blood scent rising sharp. I stayed silent. The door shook harder. His voice changed, deeper, lower. "I saw you swim. So beautiful, even in cold water. You shouldn't make me think so much, Carla." My whole body trembled. I ran to the bedroom, blocked the door with a dresser, but his footsteps echoed outside the wall, moving slowly. He didn't need to break in. He was circling, searching for another way. In the dark, I realized the villa had not just the front door. It had dozens of ways in, wide windows, side doors, vents, even a basement hatch, and I could not block them all. The bedroom light flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed me, and in that moment I heard breathing. Not from outside. Heavy, rapid breathing. Inside the room. I turned. Moonlight slipped through the curtain. Gap, enough to reveal Victor standing there. I don't know how he got in. He stood in the corner, still as stone. But his eyes gleamed, locked on me. "Tonight it's just you and me," he whispered, voice like sand scraping a throat. "No one will hear." I tried to scream, but it stuck in my throat, emerging only as a hoarse rasp. I remember the stench of sweat on his shirt, thick, overpowering the chlorine lingering in my hair. I remember the wood floor creaking with each slow step he took toward me, dragging out my terror. When my back hit the cold wall, I knew I had no place left to run. Victor stopped in front of me, leaning down, his foul breath washing over my face. "We'll celebrate your birthday in a special way." His hand rose, shadow blotting the dim light. And then, real darkness closed in. That was the last moment I still felt my body. I no longer felt my body from the instant Victor's hand closed on my neck. The outside wind vanished. My heartbeat dimmed like a candle snuffed. The final pain I remember was my nails clawing the wall, leaving faint scratches on white paint. Then darkness smothered me, heavy as stone. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer pinned beneath his weight. I stood in the corner, seeing myself, Carla, collapsed on the floor, hair tangled, eyes wide and lifeless. The room was dreadfully silent. Only Victor, panting, drenched in sweat, his black eyes still locked on my body like he wanted to claim it again. I screamed, lunged at him, but my hands passed through like smoke. I had nothing left but helplessness. He dragged my body into the hall. Flesh scraping the floor echoed, each harsh sound slicing into me. He opened the side door, hauled my corpse to the backyard, where wet grass soaked with dew and the smell of cold earth seeped deep. I followed, though I couldn't stop. Victor dug by the villa's wall beneath an old olive tree. Each shovel of dirt carried a raw earth stench mixing with the blood leaking from my body. He stuffed me into the pit, shoveled dirt carelessly, then strolled back inside as though nothing happened. But for me, it didn't end. I was trapped. In the fragile walls, in the howling wind through cracks, in the blue pool water reflecting a false sky. I saw every guest who came. By day, they laughed, took selfies on the terrace, believing this was a dream retreat. By night, they began hearing branches scraping glass, footsteps circling the villa, someone breathing above the ceiling. I wanted to warn them, but my voice became only a hiss in the vents, a buzz in the bulbs. Some heard, fled in fear in the night, others ignored. And I had to watch Victor stalk them again. I saw him, still there, as though he never left. He paced around the villa, heavy footsteps, flashlight beam slicing through cracks. Sometimes he stood for hours before the bathroom mirror, whispering lines only a ghost like me could hear. "You're still here, Carla." I know. Yes, I'm still here, pinned like a rusted nail in the cold wall. I see the pool reflecting the night, the bedroom where I died, the tree root where my body rots. I see everything, but never leave. If one day you rent a hillside villa in San Jose and at night you hear faint breathing just beyond the wall, please believe you are not alone. Because I, Carla Wilson, am still trapped here. And Victor, the death shadow, has never disappeared. Episode 5. The motel at the end of the highway. My name is Ethan Cole. That year, I was 27, a long-haul driver, living off the freight that carried me from one state to another. I used to think I knew every diner, every gas station, every roadside motel. But there was one place, only one, that turned me from a weary driver into a storyteller in the dark. That night, I died in a tiny motel at the end of a desolate stretch of highway. And now I will tell you why you should never stop there. I drove through the night, I-70 deserted, only the hum of tires grinding against asphalt. My stomach growled, my eyes burned. The fuel gauge hovered under a quarter. When I saw the faint roadside sign that read, "Motel 2 miles," I sighed in relief. The motel appeared after a bend. A low row of rooms, walls painted a dirty yellow, a flickering neon sign that said, "Vacancy." The parking lot was empty, except for an old dusty sedan. The silence was so heavy I could hear the insects buzzing, and somewhere the wind whistling through a broken lamppost, moaning like a howl. Stepping into the lobby, I was greeted by a gaunt old man, gray-haired, eyes deep and unblinking. He didn't smile, didn't say much, just handed me the key to room 6. His voice was hoarse, like metal shavings lodged in his throat. "Don't wander around. Stay in your room until morning." I gave a half smile, thinking he was just trying to spook guests into behaving. But the moment I touched the key, my hand turned cold. Room 6 was small, the bed old, the sheets smelled musty, like they hadn't been washed in ages. The window faced the lot, but the streetlight outside flickered, dimming in and out. I dropped my backpack, turned on the TV, only static, hissing like someone whispering close to my ear. I switched it off. Silence swallowed the room again. At midnight, I woke with a jolt. Footsteps. Someone was pacing the hallway, heavy, dragging, slow, passing each door in turn. Thump, thump, thump. The clock read 2:17. Who walks around at this hour? I cracked the door. The hallway stretched long, lit by a blood-red neon bulb dangling overhead. No one there. I was about to close it when knocking. Software knock, knock, not at my door. It came from room 8, 2 doors down. "Hello?" I whispered. No answer, just the knocking, steady, rhythmic, like the heartbeat of this death-ridden motel. Shuddering, I shut the door. But when I turned, I froze. The TV had turned on by itself. Static again. But in the haze, a figure stood in the frame. Motionless. No face, just a pitch-black shape, its head tilted unnaturally to one side. I yanked the plug. The screen went dark, but the socket reeked of burning plastic, acrid enough to make me gag. In the darkness, from the corner of the room, a voice whispered, "You shouldn't have stopped here, Ethan." Every hair on my body stood on end. I whipped around, nothing. Just an old wooden chair and a cracked mirror, hanging crooked. In the glass, I saw myself, but the reflection didn't move, even as I staggered back. I stood frozen. The figure in the mirror kept its head tilted, eyes black, not mine at all. I raised a trembling hand. The reflection didn't copy me. It only stared, then slowly stretched its mouth into a grin, splitting ear to ear. I screamed, hurled the pillow at the mirror. Glass shattered, shards clattering to the floor. But in every piece, that same face stared back. Its eyes locked on me. The stench of blood filled the room, though I wasn't hurt. As if the room itself bled decay. I bolted into the hallway, slamming the door behind me. The corridor was darker now, the red bulb flickering wildly. Footsteps again, right behind me. I spun. No one there, but my shadow stretched long on the floor, its head cocked sideways just like in the mirror. I meant to run straight for the lobby, but as I passed room 8, the door creaked open. From the blackness, a hand emerged. Pale, bony, with blackened nails. It tapped the frame in that same rhythm. Knock, knock, knock. My throat dry, I stumbled back. The door opened wider. Inside was no motel room, but a cold void, choked with mist, like the mouth of an endless cavern. In the fog, dozens of figures stood huddled together. None moved, none spoke. They only stared with hollow black eyes, lips cracked into jagged smiles. I fell back, heart hammering. The door slammed shut, silent as if it had never opened. Drenched in cold sweat, I ran to the lobby. The old man sat at the desk. But as I approached, I realized he wasn't moving, wasn't blinking. His neck bent to one side, face pale, lips cracked. I staggered back when a hoarse laugh rasped in my ear. "Stay, Ethan. You came in. There is no way out." I whipped around, nothing. Only the front door, glass fogged with condensation. I lunged, shoved it open. It swung easily, but outside was no parking lot. Only a hallway, endless, ceiling low, red neon bulbs dangling and spilling their sickly glow. Identical motel doors lined both sides, stretching into the dark. Panic took me. I ran, pounded on door after door. All locked. My voice cracked as I screamed, echoes swallowing me whole. Behind me, dragging footsteps. Thump, thump. Patient, unhurried. I turned. At the far end, through the red haze, a figure emerged. Head tilted, grin splitting wide. Step by step it advanced, not fast, yet the hall seemed to shrink, bringing it closer with every blink. "I want to leave," I shouted. But only echoes replied, "Leave, leave." From every door, the hallway itself mocking me, and I realized the horror. This motel wasn't for the living. It was a trap, devouring anyone unlucky enough to enter. And I had entered. I kept running, shoes pounding the icy floor, breath sharp with a metallic tang in my throat. The doors stayed the same. No numbers, no signs. I screamed, begged for one to open. Only warped echoes whispered back, 100 mouths chanting, "Stay, stay." The footsteps behind, slow, steady. The tilted head shadow closing in without ever rushing. No matter how far I ran, it would always be right behind me. Then the neon above flickered out. A bulb shattered, glass scattering. The red glow bled, the hallway folding in on itself. I fell hard, hands burning on the tiles. Lifting my head, I saw a door ajar just ahead. White light leaked from the crack. A way out. I threw myself inside. The room was bare, just a TV on the floor. Static hissed, but in the screen I saw myself, sitting in the corner, eyes wide, mouth moving silently. I froze. The figure on screen grinned, whispered, "You'll never leave. You'll stay, like me, like all of us." Knocking thundered against the door. I spun, but the door was gone. Just 4 bare walls, scarred with claw marks and smeared with dried handprints. Footsteps filled the room, but there was nowhere left to go. I slid back against the wall, vision spinning, the stench of mold choking me. And then it crawled out of the TV. Tall, thin, face deathly pale, head bent unnaturally. It dragged its feet toward me. I couldn't move, frozen solid. It leaned down, icy breath brushing my skin. The last words I heard, "Now you belong to the motel." I don't know when I died. Only that when I opened my eyes again, I sat behind the reception desk, an old registry in front of me. Night after night, I watch weary travelers step in, luggage in hand, eyes glazed from fatigue. I smile, the kind of smile that never reaches the eyes, and hand them a key. Room 6, room 8, any room. Doesn't matter. They all lead to the same place. When they ask, "Is it safe here?" I always repeat the old man's warning. Just stay in your room until morning. But I know no one will ever see dawn at the end of that highway, because this motel isn't on any map. It only opens its doors for the unlucky who stumble upon it. And once you enter, you'll never leave.